very American, that's for sure. First thing we do is drive for 23 days. I mean, that's what Americans do. Burn a lot of gas.
Yeah, it's lots of the people who were on the bus weren't your typical adventurers. Mostly, well, you know, it was a real mixed batch.
He needed a driver, and I was at the committee, and I wasn't doing anything special with my life at that time, and I just was sitting at the committee, and I said, I'll drive.
I thought it was a good bus. But it went so slow sometimes. You'd get off and jog alongside. It was crazy. Old Yellow. Had character. Had lots of character.
I mean, I was just there as the official person whose name was on all the papers. And I didn't have to do all the talking. I just had to sit there and look like I was important.
It's different. I mean, it's different to give money and to organizations. I mean, in this kind of secondhand way, I'm not saying that that's not really fundamental to lots and lots of movements, but to go down there and make a clinic or, you know, build up from the ground something that wasn't there before and just see how it helps is something that you don't really get a chance to do usually.
This was the country we were most visibly at war with. And, you know, so for me it was a matter of, it was piecework.
You know, Big Yellow just wasn't ready. The brake line broke, and we couldn't find the parts. And so all these people came at the last minute.
Rained all night, the day we left, now the weather's dry. When they ask us questions here, all we say is no I. Oh, come, Wapa, oh, don't wait up for us. Oh, we're going to Nicaragua, great big yellow bus. I am with you.
Probably the biggest worry I have is some kind of major mechanical breakdown with the bus. One of the weakest points in our trip, I think, is that we don't have an actual mechanic on the trip going with us. So we need your prayers with this trip.
And the idea of Sister City in terms of fostering peace, not just in Nicaragua, but with any country, is to create that human connection, which is the essential thing of peace.
Our little group of people on the bus, everyone was, you could see everyone as vital and larger than life in their own personality, just because you're in such a kind of roughing it situation.
Mike Shapiro, Miguel. I loved his smile. He had this great, shit-eating grin, you know, because he didn't understand Spanish. So, and yet he was ostensibly the one in the position of authority. And he'd just go around smiling whenever he had to, you know, meet an official of some sort or another.
Mexico was the first border that we got through, and we were real nervous because we hadn't done it before. And Ted Rose, who was my mouthpiece, he was the translator at that point, had some very bad memories from this particular border. I wasn't too nervous because it wasn't kind of up to me.
What is all that stuff?
Medical supplies and school supplies.
You tell them that they have to check with immigration.
Oh, yeah.
We stopped, actually the best meals, for me anyway, were just along the roadside, you know. Stopping along the roadside and you know, everyone sold everything.
Had a drink the other night, or 2 or 3 or 8. Kirk and Mike and Talking Tom and Quesadilla Kate.
I got to do a lot of the things I've been wanting to do for a long time, to photograph and to start getting involved in journalism and and use my translating. I felt very useful. The bus offered a really intimate, direct way to go down there, and you could really feel your help. It was very gratifying, you know, and I was acting as translator. It was just very gratifying. I could see how much I was helping, and everyone on the bus was useful in some capacity. Like, even the kids helped us cross borders by just looking innocent.
Dick's Spanish was about one caliber better than mine. So the Spanish wasn't any good, but he sang songs. So.
It's got 5 instead of 6, and they're set up different.
Well, he was a doctor, and that came in handy. There was a woman who had like a roadside birthing in Honduras, and he went and helped out. And I guess it just makes you feel more secure sometimes to have a doctor on board, especially when you're feeling dehydrated and undernourished.
Not as much as I know.
He just has a really light presence, and of course, him being my dad, it was comforting for me to have him along.
I just went along to sing songs, apparently. I think I was there to entertain and to, if anybody got sick, well, then I could be of use, but nobody really did, so all I had to do was play my guitar and make jokes. We crossed the border from Mexico into Guatemala, so you had to go through all the Mexican authorities. Then you'd drive about 100 yards, and then you had to deal with all the Guatemalan authorities. And Talking Tom, right? He was a talker. Yeah, he knew Spanish, and he'd lived in Mexico and Central America on and off for many years, and sort of. You know, he understood the customs, the bribery, and how to deal with people and all that. We crossed the border from Mexico into Guatemala, and there's a bridge going over that. Actually, we got there about 2 hours after it closed, and we had to stay about 3 days waiting for it to open. For some reason, they had a vacation.
Well, the first days are the hardest days, don't you worry anymore.
It's going to be hard to get out of here.
When
It's hard to get in.
it's like easy street, there is danger at your door. Think this through with me.
So what are we doing here, Mike?
Let me know your mind.
Trying to get the hell out of here.
Whoa.
Parking lot, or where all these vehicles were, and we just couldn't get out. There was a bus, there was a car parked there, and it was real hot, and the bus was so long, and you know, I couldn't maneuver it, and I was losing it, I think.
What's for the break?
Well, the first days are the hardest days, don't you worry anymore. 'Cause when my clothes
Hey, Mike, you'll have to just go as far back as you can, and
For some reason, you know, taking a bus through to Nicaragua was something new, I think. And so the official there was very nervous about it, and he also demanded that we take on an armed guard. So we had this other young guy, armed guard, who was very nervous because his boss told him if anything happened to our bus, it was his job. So this guy never took his eye off our bus, even at night. And I think coming out of Guatemala, I was going down not a very big hill, but I realized that I lost my brakes. I mean, I could stop, but it would take me, I don't know, a half a mile. And so it was a good way to see the countryside. If you're on a bus all the time and you're sticking to the schedule, you don't get to see the countryside. But if you break down once in a while, then you can see the countryside. So all these kids came together. It was a big event for them. All these kids who were in the country, they were real curious but shy, and they were just looking through the fence and giggling and
Tenéis que cantar, vamos a parar. Para bailar la bamba se necesita una cosa de gracia, mari, 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 mari.
Ba 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 ba. Ba ba ba. Yo soy marinero. Yo no soy marinero.
Pero ayúdanos, tenés que seguir cantando.
My idea is that as part of working for peace, that people can't make war on people they know. The essential thing about making war is to dehumanize the people you're fighting against and to make them into something non-human, because otherwise it's basically murder. And the idea of Sister City in terms of fostering peace, not just in Nicaragua but with any country, is to create that human connection.
I knew it was going to be really hard, but you can't really imagine it until you get there. Not hard personally, because we had provisions, but, you know, well, we didn't have that many provisions, and being a vegetarian, I got to see that you can survive on rice and beans and cerveza. But it gets progressively harder, like I said. After Mexico, you're kind of just struck by poverty, and then you go to Guatemala, and it's even worse, and Honduras, worst of all, and then there's Nicaragua.
And here we were in the middle of Guatemala trying to buy paint, and so that was one of the reasons why we stopped here, was Ted and I were going to go and try to buy paint. We never could.
Heaven, man, this is heaven. Look at this.
Dick got to go and buy some firecrackers for Christmas for his kids, and he loved it because Dick loves firecrackers. I didn't buy any firecrackers. I think I just bought a belt.
¿Qué pasa?
We're in hot water.
We're in hot water, agua caliente.
I had with me this big book that had all the documentation for our trip. It had letters from senators and letters from community people and had lots of different seals on it, in fact. At this particular border, they gave us a lot of problems. They made us unload. It was uncomfortable because we'd sit for hours in the sun and, you know, have to do a lot of heavy work unloading the bus.
What's
So
the
all
scare?
we got to do is try to fit this stuff back in the bus, and off we go to Nicaragua. There was a lot of palabra, you know, a lot of problems going on with how to get the best money exchange rate, because, and they were pretty shrewd, and we had some pretty shrewd guys on our trip too. They were.
I need money. I need somebody with money. Mike, you got money? Come on.
I can't wait to get on the bus again. Going places I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the bus again.
Close her up.
On the bus again. Like a band of gypsies, we go
Next time we
down
unlock
the
this door,
highway.
it'll be in Comuapa,
We're the
Nicaragua.
best of friends, insisting that the world be treated our way and our way.
It seemed like we were, you know, we were most of the way there. We just had, you know, theoretically we only had a couple more days, because it was supposed to be, I think, 1.5 days through Honduras, and then we were in Nicaragua, and then we were on, you know, a sure thing. So here we took on Jose. He was good to have along. He told me when to put a little money in the piece of paper that I was going to give, because you got stopped all the time. he told me to put a little money in here to this guy and a little money there to this guy. And he was a real, you know, friendly, easygoing person who stayed on the bus away from his family right throughout Christmas and stayed with us the whole time. It would have been difficult without him. There were checkpoints all over throughout. There were lots of soldiers all over.
People were really negative and knew what we were doing and knew that the bus was filled with help for Nicaragua, and you know, it was real negative, you know, and it's not only worse but really scary.
You know, I think the whole, you know, the whole drama of trying to get the bus there, trying to mechanically get the bus there, certainly made you forget about any fears about war in Nicaragua.
When we hit the hills of Honduras, Big Yellow said, "Oh no, I don't think I can make it."
The Big Yellow was sounding terrible, and it was, hills were pretty heavy here, and it was hardly making it up. And that's when we got to the top of the incline, that like there was this horrible noise and this sort of like explosion or something. And it was like total pandemonium. Someone grabbed the fire extinguisher, and all of a sudden I saw something go shooting through the oil pan, and it was a piece of hot metal. For reasons that we never planned, we happened to have an extra engine on board. Unfortunately, we packed it back toward the front of the bus. And so to get to it, we had to unload the whole bus again and unload the engine. The mechanic came out with his, truck, and the people who worked with him called him the Maestro. The Maestro and his merry minstrels, he had all these kids with him, and they were like his apprentices, and they did all his work, kind of. They would, you know, take off all the bolts. They took this engine apart, and it was like they took the engine apart, and they took a part off and threw it over here, and took a part off, threw it over here. We thought, oh man, we'll never get this thing back together again.
Did you say a thing about it? Your penitentiary bound at the midnight special. Shine a light on me. It's a midnight special. Shine a light on me.
Well, believe it or not, it's our number 4 piston. Which is why we're not making, look at how melted that is. God, is that hot.
When the motor finally flew.
Christmas Day, we were broken down by the side of the road in Honduras. We read stories and just relaxed. I mean, we wanted to enjoy Christmas despite the bad position we were in.
Happy birthday, oh happy birthday, Jesus.
Probably a Christmas I'll never forget, for sure.
We had all these little boys inside the engine throwing pieces out and scattering them all over the road, and we didn't understand if they knew what they were doing or not.
A lot of points I didn't think it was going to happen. At one point, he started putting a head on the engine. We hadn't put the head on the engine, that was it. And so he started tightening down all the bolts, and it was really tightening, and all of a sudden he broke a head bolt. So we were missing a head bolt. So there was a guy on the side of the road with a machete, right? And he had a 2x2 or something, and so the Maestro told him to start carving down a peg. At that point, to me, it seemed like real hopeless to me. It just seemed like we were not going to make it.
2, 1, hit it. Hit it. Gracias. Push the clutch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On the bus again. I
Well, actually, I never felt hopeful until we actually fired it up and it actually started and it moved.
We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way and our way.
I thought it was a good bus. But it went so slow sometimes. It was so big and monstrous and creaky, and we were proud of it. I mean, it seemed like it was trying really hard. It was just puttering up these hills, and the hills were scary. They were so steep, really steep hills. And every time you got over, finally got over the part that you were really worried about, you'd look up and there was just like another one that was even worse. And Honduras was so hilly. It's really hard on a bus. It'd be fun to go in a good car.
It's dangerous to drive around, to drive through the country, especially at night. And we had sort of said, okay, we're not going to drive in Nicaragua at night. If we have to, even if we're real close, we'll just stop and we won't. Well, we got to, we got to the end of the main road where you're about to, there's about a 30-mile drive into Camhuapa on this sort of bad road, which is well known as a place where the Contras are active and they ambush people. And
Every time you come over the crest of the hill, if you're paranoid enough, you think that there's going to be all these Contras across the road with guns, and there's a lot of things that you can get into imagining. After a while, that goes away. I mean, after a while, you get used to it. Well, the bus broke down like 15 minutes outside of Camhuapa, and the mayor had come to meet us there, right? Rosaura had come to meet us.
Oh, okay. Vamos. It's prohibited to park here because they're guarding the bridge.
And that stretch of road was not a good road to be on at night because of Contras. And so we really wanted to try to make it during the daylight, but we didn't. So we ended up driving at night over that dirt road.
had to drive that whole stretch in the dark, and that was I mean, nothing happened. We were fine, but it was scary. Well, we were real happy to get there.
We basically had the reception in the morning when we drove into the square, and there were just lots and lots of kids, and just getting mobbed. I mean, these kids were excited. They were really excited.
How is it different from Arcata? You know, Arcata is kind of a sophisticated place, relatively speaking. It's got a university, and Camhuapa is much more rural. You know, it's very different in that respect. It's a little cow town. I mean, they have Hank Williams on the jukebox down there. I mean, they don't have Hank Williams on the jukebox in Arcata.
You know, the people were so positive. The minute we crossed the Nicaraguan border, like our sister city in Camhuapa, you would see that those people are very much filled with love and gratitude and friendship.
It was hard to walk through town without being drunk by the time you got to the place you want, because people would just sort of invite you in for a glass of rum and want to talk, even if you didn't know Spanish, and show you their daughters. And I mean, they were just, I mean, they're little kids, and I mean, they were just tremendously friendly and open. There was no sense of we are the enemy. They seemed to really distinguish between the American, you know, an individual and the government. In terms of war, they're at war. They were then. They were at war, and they were very aware of it. I mean, they could still party, and they were wonderful people and enjoyed themselves, but you're constantly aware of the fact that there was a war going on, that people were getting killed, and it wasn't safe outside the city, really. They need to have the war to stop. They need us to stop being aggressive, and they're open and friendly towards help, as it were, but that's not what they need. What we need to do is to stop making war on them.
You know, I mean, it was nice that we brought down all those things, and we helped the people of Kamwapa in their medical clinic, but maybe more importantly, it was just the effort of people from the United States going down to people in Nicaragua to, you know, make that human contact and overcome a lot of the feelings of war and hostilities and that are generated. I mean, the bus was actually just the end of a vast effort that, you know, had started months and months and months before, maybe half a year or so before.
I think one of the most important things is that a lot of people work in solidarity movements, not just in Nicaragua, but El Salvador, and just on a larger scale with lots of political issues. And if you got to go there personally, if you had such a personal, intimate experience with some group like our sister city in Kamwapa, you would see that those people are very much filled with love and gratitude and friendship, and that's really important to, and it's an important message to take back to the people who never get to really feel that in a direct way. You feel kind of lucky, you know. I mean,
Well, we were real happy to be. I mean, this had been a long trip. And to actually make it there, you know, having to stop every hour and pour oil into the engine. I mean, every hour, literally, and you know, there wasn't much left of that engine. It's amazing that it actually got there.
it's a miracle that that bus made it.
The great big yellow bus going to Nicaragua will make it over Oh, Kamwapa, oh, don't wait up for us. Oh, we're going to Nicaragua.